To me, this is actually quite sad news here, people. Artur Beterbiev has lost his legal case with his promoter, Yvonne Michelle. The promotional company of Yvonne Michelle is called GYM Gym, which stands for Group Yvonne Michelle. Where do I start with this? Basically, Beterbiev has been in this legal battle with Yvonne Michelle for, it must be over a year now, maybe longer, at least over a year. And he has been trying to jump ship from Yvonne Michelle over to Top Rank. And it looked as though the Top Rank deal was done. But apparently, according to this article, it's not done. And that a Canadian courtroom has ruled that Beterbiev is under a valid contract to Yvonne Michelle until 2021. I hate when this kind of thing happens to fighters, man. This is why I always say to young fighters, be careful who you sign with, and be careful how long you sign for, because you don't want to get caught up in a situation where you're tied down to a promoter who you don't want to be with, and you're struggling to break free from them, but they've got this stranglehold over your career, because things can get very messy. Things can get really spiteful, you know. Mikey Garcia lost 2 years of his career because of legal issues with his former promoter, or his promoter at the time, Bob Arum. He lost 2 years. Andre Ward lost several years of his career, of his prime years, because of his legal issues with his then promoter, Dan Goosen. And so on and so forth. Many fighters have lost many good years during their careers because of legal wranglings with promoters. And Beterbiev has been relatively inactive over the past couple of years for the exact same reason, and perhaps he's going to be inactive over the next couple of years for the same reason, depending on whether he can sort out the situation with Yvonne Michelle, whether they can make amends in any way. But these situations often turn bitter. You know, they often turn bitter. So I feel sad about it. And as I say, young fighters need to look at who they're signing with. Look at the track record of who they're signing with. Are they with promoters who try to tie these fighters down when they want to leave and make it difficult for them? Is that what certain promoters have in their track record? Or are they other promoters where if you want to leave, they just let you leave? Like Haymaker, you know, big up David Hay and Haymaker for allowing fighters to leave when they want to leave. Now, obviously, there are certain times when you have to enforce a contract, but it's noticing a pattern of behavior with certain promoters, you know, where sometimes you'd be like, you know what, if you really don't want to be here, we can let you go. Even though the contract's still valid, we can let you go. You know, we'll do it for you. Haymaker's done that. As far as I know, Eddie Hearn's done that a bunch of times. I prefer to see when promoters do that, you know, rather than when they do this, when they try to lock them in when they don't want to be there. So, also, the Sauerlands have had legal battles with certain fighters like Marco Huck, and even Kubrat Pulev has had his issues with the Sauerlands. I don't like to see that kind of thing, man. I generally tend to come down in favor of the fighter, you know, because he's the one risking his life, and if he's not, and he's the one also, the fighter's the one who has a very short career, relatively speaking, right? How long during a fighter's career does he really have to make serious life-changing sums of money? Maybe for the average world-class fighter, he might have a 3, 4, 5 year period. For the average world-class fighter, that's a very short period. Whereas a promoter, there's no time limit on when they can make life-changing sums of money, you know? So that's why I tend to come down in favor of the fighters rather than the promoters. And the fighters are the most important part of the equation. Without the fighters, nobody gets paid. I've mentioned this before. You don't need promoters for fighters to get paid from fighting. I mean, gypsies have bare knuckle fights where they put down thousands and thousands of pounds on the bare knuckle fights with no promoters involved at all. Facts. Yeah, if you don't know, get to know. That goes on, even still today. So you don't need promoters. Fighters can fight without promoters. Obviously, the promoters help the fighters make more money, but at the end of the day, the fighter is the most important part of the equation, and they should be respected as such. That's always my view. So, yeah, sad to see this is going on with Artur Beterbiev. God knows what's going to happen with his next fight, which is supposed to be against Callum Johnson. God knows if that's going to happen or not. Eddie Hearn actually said that the how exactly did he put this? He said that Beterbiev can't fight outside of Canada or something like this, or he can only fight on ESPN, or he can't fight outside of Canada, one of the two, or maybe both, if a fight goes to a purse bid. So the only way for him legally and contractually to fight outside of the clutches of Yvonne Michelle is if the fight goes to a purse bid. So maybe that's still a way that Artur Beterbiev can go fight elsewhere. We'll see. And yet another way that there might be a way out for Artur Beterbiev is if Mr. $1 billion man Eddie Hearn comes flying in and offers to buy Beterbiev out of his contract with Yvonne Michelle, which is something he might do, right? Because if Top Rank don't have him and he is under Yvonne Michelle, Eddie Hearn, who's looking at the moment to overpay fighters, that's what Eddie Hearn's saying. He's going to overpay fighters, even though it's hypocritical. You know, he criticized Al Heyman for doing it in the past. Now he's doing it. Okay. You know, now the shoe's on the other foot. Now the tables are turned. But yeah, if Eddie Hearn comes in and speaks to Yvonne Michelle and makes them an offer they can't refuse to buy him out of his contract, might be able to do it. And that would be quite a coup for Eddie Hearn, actually, because that would be a big way into the light heavyweight division. And Beterbiev is really a guy who they could box in America and they could box him in the UK, because obviously the UK is a lot closer to Russia. I know some people get funny when I say that Beterbiev is Russian. Look, his citizenship internationally is Russian. I know or I believe he's Chechen or whatever he is, but internationally he's known as a Russian. So Britain is obviously a lot closer to Russia. You have to imagine that if they were to box him in the UK or even box him in Europe, Eddie Hearn will be able to do that. You know, particularly in the UK anyway, they'll be able to box him in the UK. Maybe on, imagine him boxing on Joshua shows and stuff like that. That'd be a big deal. That'd be a big, big deal. And yeah, that'd be quite a coup for Hearn. So he might want to have a look at Artur Beterbiev, because he recently did approach Mayweather Promotions with a view to buying Tank Davis out of his contract. He said Mayweather Promotions basically told him to F off. But Yvonne Michelle might not. And how could I forget, now that I'm talking about fighters who are having difficult situations with their promoters and they're being locked down when they don't want to be locked down, Gervonta Davis is a perfect example of that again. I hate seeing that happen to fighters. At least with Tank Davis, he's a bit more active. Some fighters don't get to fight at all, because it gets so bitter with their promoter. And when they do get to fight, the promoter is not really pushing for them to get the best fights. And yeah, it just gets messy. So we'll see what happens here with Artur Beterbiev. Let me know how you guys feel about this in the comment section below. It's Hatman, I'm out.